in the absolutely gorgeous, Larry, sit down, the absolutely gorgeous San Fernando Valley. I am also a lifelong science fiction geek. And I go back to the original series. I was in high school. Do the math. I guess that's how old I am. And the original series so completely blew my mind that it led to this lifelong obsession with all things having to do with spaceships shooting at each other. And I started asking myself, what is it about Star Trek? And you can say, well, great plots, great characters, great story arcs, great special effects, but somehow that does not seem to capture it. I can make that statement about a lot of series that I really like that have not reached in and taken hold of my soul the way Star Trek and all of its various forms have taken. I am a little bit of an oddball in my profession. Daryl's nodding. In that I happen to believe that popular culture has a tremendous potential for teaching in all kinds of situations. And I believe that science fiction is becoming, or has already become, the mythology of our time. These are the great mythological narratives of our generation, of our time, and our culture. And I think they deserve to be explored very seriously. When I was a kid, science fiction was about bug-eyed monsters, and it was relegated to secondary status. And I have watched this genre grow into something just absolutely incredible, with Star Trek right at the very front of it. Now, normally how these sessions work, we actually hold them in the sanctuary of the church. We have a great big screen, and we project an episode. We first watch an episode. It's like watching it in a movie theater, because it's big screen and stuff. Then, my co-host, Academy Award-winning makeup guru Mike Westmore, joins me. We talk a little bit, and then we introduce a guest who was connected with that episode somehow. Usually an actor, although not always an actor. And we then explore the episode from the guest perspective. And there is no dogma going on here. I was once talking to a prospective guest, and he said, well, you wouldn't want me because I'm an atheist. And I said, au contraire, I want you precisely because you're an atheist. Because I believe that all perspectives need to be examined here. We need to hear all the different paradigms, everything that people bring to Star Trek, and hear why it is important to them. So normally what we'd be doing right now is we'd be watching an episode. In this case, it would be from DS9. And we'd watch the episode and we'd say, wow, that's great to see it up on that great big screen. And then we'd be talking. Now, we can't do that. And normally, I don't spend a lot of time talking. I don't lecture. I don't sermonize. Particulars may be very different. The way that the archetype is expressed in that culture may be very different than ours. But it's the same archetype. It's the same concept. So, what does this have to do with Star Trek? Star Trek is all about the universals. Star Trek is all about the reconciliation of opposites. Star Trek is about making sense of a universe where there are opposing forces going on. Some really, really obvious, very clear examples. Human Vulcan, Spock. Spock becomes a walking representation of reconciliation. These two cultures, these two forces that seem to be operating out of entirely different paradigms find union in Spock. And at the time, when Star Trek first aired and we first got that Roddenberry vision, this was a really radical concept. This idea of reconciliation of opposites was not something that we tended to do a lot in the culture. Klingon human, B'Elanna Torres, in Voyager. Boy, does she go through some interesting character arcs there. And again, it's two cultures that seemingly don't have a lot in common, but she becomes the focal point for this reconciliation. I'll give you just a few more here. The Enemy Within, the original series episode, Good Kirk, Bad Kirk, dealing with the fact that within each of us there is good and there is bad, and the really radical notion that they need each other. That balance between good and evil within people is actually necessary for us to survive. Naked Time, the episode where they got the planet and they all kind of went nuts for a while. Civilized versus primitive we have coming in. One of my favorites is the Frank Gorshin episode, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, where we have these two aliens who are at each other's throats, and nobody can figure out why. One half of the face is black, the other half of the face is white, and we finally figure out why they hate each other, because one is black on the left side, the other is black on the right side. Very, very important, and a really good reason to be trying to kill each other. So we have many characters that talk about this quest to resolve the opposites, this quest to bring together those things which seem not to be terribly compatible. Spock, Data, there's a different way of coming at it. Data wants to embrace humanity. Data doesn't quite know what that means, and we have some interesting moments, some of them quite funny, but Data is trying to reconcile his computer, his machine nature, with this innate desire to be human. Voyager, the EMH, the Doctor, it's the same kind of archetype. The Doctor wants to be human. And the Doctor sometimes is very disappointed to find out what that means, but the Doctor wants to be human. 7 of 9, who began life human, and now is Borg, and is trying to reconcile those 2 points. DS9, Odo, the changeling, attempting to reconcile the fact that he is a changeling with this culture that he's come to embrace, these people that he's come to love, and they're now at war with one another. Cisco, we go on and on and on. So my short answer right now, and again, this is just my short answer, is that Star Trek, if we think of it as a mythological narrative, and I use mythological here in the highest, best possible use. I mean, sometimes we talk about, politicians will denigrate one another by saying, the myth of laissez-faire capitalism, or whatever it is. Here we're using mythology and myth in its highest and best form. And if mythology has been all about this reconciliation of opposites, this finding of the universal, then here we have a mythological narrative that is precisely about that. That it is not sub